They said it was just for fun when they locked my childhood bedroom door with my daughter trapped inside. Lights suddenly dead, their laughter echoing down the hallway. A man I once called Uncle looked at me and grinned. Just a little fun. If you've ever been pushed into a dark room of humiliation by your own family while they pretended it was all a game, come with me tonight. I'm turning on the lights and locking the door my way. My name is Lauren Hale, 34 years old, single mother to Maddie who just turned 9 last month. I lead the design team at Everpine Studio in Columbus, though we live 40 minutes away in Maple Ridge, Ohio, a town small enough that everyone knows your business but large enough to pretend they don't. The annual Hale family reunion invitation arrived 3 weeks ago, handwritten by my mother Elaine in her perfect cursive that always felt more like a summons than an invitation. Same date every year, third Saturday in August. Same location my parents' farmhouse property, 20 acres of land they'd inherited from my grandparents, complete with a barn they'd converted into what Dad calls his entertainment space, but is really just where he hides from Mom's criticisms. I'd almost thrown the invitation away. Maddie found it in the recycling bin, smoothed out the creases, and asked why we never visited the grandparents with the horses. She didn't remember the last reunion. She was only 5, and I'd made sure we left early before Uncle Wade's pranks escalated beyond hiding car keys and putting salt in the sugar bowl. Wade, my mother's younger brother, 41 and still acting like a frat boy who never learned that jokes stop being funny when people get hurt. He runs a handyman service now, Redline Handyman and Locks, though I doubt he has proper licensing for half the work he does. At family gatherings, he's the self-appointed entertainment director, which translates to finding creative ways to humiliate whoever seems weakest. Usually, that was me, the divorced single mother who couldn't keep a man, as he'd say with that tobacco-stained grin. But Maddie wanted to go. She's been struggling since the power outage incident 6 months ago. Our apartment building lost electricity for 14 hours during a winter storm, and she'd been alone in her room when everything went dark. The pediatrician called it a mild phobic response to darkness, treatable with gradual exposure therapy. I'd installed nightlights in every room, kept flashlights in every drawer. She was getting better, braver. Maybe seeing family would help. I'd thought. Maybe this time would be different. 2 nights before the reunion, I was scrolling through Facebook when Wade's post appeared in the family group. A shaky video of someone trying to escape from a locked room, filmed through a keyhole. Escape room challenge at the reunion Hale family edition. Let's see who's really brave. The comments were all laughing emojis from my cousins. My cousin Tara, the family's social media queen, had shared it to her story with fire emojis. My stomach turned, but I told myself I was overreacting. It was probably nothing. The morning we left for the farmhouse, Maddie packed her overnight bag carefully, her tablet, her books, the small flashlight I'd given her shaped like a ladybug. Just in case the country is darker than the city, she'd said, trying to sound casual. I'd kissed her forehead, promised her we'd leave the moment she felt uncomfortable. The weather forecast showed storms moving in by evening. I'd checked 3 different apps, all showing the same thing: severe thunderstorm warning for the county where my parents lived. But Maddie was already buckled in, excited about seeing horses and meeting cousins she'd only seen in Christmas card photos. I should have trusted my instincts, should have remembered that in the Hale family. Just for fun was code for something else entirely. Should have known that when Wade got that particular grin, the one that made his eyes disappear into slits, someone was about to become the punchline of a joke that would leave scars. But I drove us there anyway, watching the sky darken in the rearview mirror, while Maddie sang along to the radio and practiced introducing herself to relatives she'd never really know. The Reunion Hale banner hung crooked across the porch, one corner already coming loose in the humid August wind. The smell hit us before we'd even opened the car doors: charred meat and cheap beer mixed with the underlying sweetness of corn from the neighboring fields. My father, Victor, stood at the grill, his back to the driveway, shoulders hunched in that way that meant he'd already had 3 beers and would spend the rest of the day avoiding meaningful conversation. My mother, Elaine, glided past us as we walked up the gravel path, her eyes sliding over Maddie like she was part of the landscape. Lauren, finally. Everyone's been asking. No hello for her granddaughter. No acknowledgement of the small wave Maddie offered. Just that practiced smile that never reached her eyes. Already moving toward Tara, who was posing for selfies by the dessert table. Wade materialized from behind the barn, something metallic glinting in his hands. A new padlock, heavy duty, the kind with a black finish that looked military grade. He tossed it up and caught it, the mechanism clicking with each impact. "Little Maddie," he boomed. Though she'd never been little to him, this was only her second reunion in memory. "You brave enough for some fun games today." Maddie pressed closer to my leg. I felt her small fingers find the edge of my shirt pocket, a gesture she'd developed since the power outage. Wade's eyes tracked the movement, and his grin widened. He clicked the padlock open and shut, the sound sharp in the thick air. "We're good, Wade," I said, keeping my voice level. "Maybe later." "Later," he repeated, winking at Tara, who was already filming. "I'll hold you to that." The house felt smaller than I remembered, or maybe I'd just grown used to spaces where I could breathe. Mom directed us to my old bedroom with a vague wave upstairs. "Same room as always. I kept your key. It's around here somewhere. Safer with me. You know how you lose things." The room hadn't been touched since high school, except someone had been through my things. Photo albums lay open, yearbooks moved from the shelf to the desk. My old diary, which I thought I'd hidden well-placed deliberately on the pillow. A violation dressed up as preservation. Maddie set her bag down carefully, testing the lamp on the nightstand. It flickered once before steadying. "Mom," she whispered, "the lights feel loose." Before I could check, Tara's voice shrilled from downstairs. "Family photo in 5. Everyone by the barn." The crowd outside had grown cousins I barely recognized, their kids running wild through the garden my mother pretended to care about. Wade stood on the porch's top step, still playing with that padlock, now showing it off to my cousin Derek. "Silent as death when it clicks," Wade said, loud enough for everyone to hear. "Perfect for surprises. You can lock something up and nobody'd even know until they tried the door." The air felt heavier, storm clouds bunching together like a fist. During the photo, Wade positioned himself behind Maddie and me, and I could hear the soft click-click of him working the padlock's mechanism. In the developed photo later, you'd be able to see it if you looked him holding it up behind Maddie's head like devil horns, that grin splitting his face. After the photos, the adults gathered around the picnic tables while kids were sent to play. Maddie asked to go inside to read, away from the noise and the flying insects drawn to the food. "I'll be up in just a minute," I promised, but Mom grabbed my arm. "You'll stay for the toast," she said, not a question. Family tradition. Wade had disappeared somewhere. I kept looking toward the house, where I could see Maddie's small silhouette in the upstairs window. The storm was moving in faster than predicted, the light already taking on that greenish quality that meant trouble. That's when I heard it, Wade's voice from near the back door, talking to someone on his phone. "Yeah, the breaker box is in the basement. Second switch from the left controls the upstairs. Just flip it and flip it back. 30 seconds of dark, max. Kid needs to toughen up anyway." Every instinct screamed. I pulled away from my mother's grip and started toward the house, but the crowd of relatives seemed to thicken. Everyone wanting to say hello, to ask about the divorce, to tell me how thin I looked, how tired. By the time I reached the porch, Wade was already coming back outside, whistling. That whistle, the same tune he'd whistled 20 years ago when he'd locked me in the barn's feed room during hide and seek, left me there for 2 hours while everyone searched the woods. "Where you rushing off to?" he asked, blocking the door with his body. "My daughter. She's fine," he said, and held up something that made my blood turn to ice water. A key. An old brass key I recognized immediately. The key to my childhood bedroom door. The key dangled from Wade's fingers like a caught fish. Behind him, through the screen door, I heard it a soft thud, then another, the sound of small fists against wood. "Mom," Maddie's voice, muffled but rising. "Mom, the door won't open." I shoved past Wade, but he grabbed my arm, his construction-rough hands leaving marks I'd photograph later. "Relax, it's just a game. Building character." The lights in the upper windows went out. Maddie's scream cut through everything, the party noise, the distant thunder, my last shred of faith in family. I wrenched free and ran, taking the stairs 3 at a time. The hallway was dark, lit only by phone screens as Tara and 2 cousins stood filming, their faces ghoulish in the white glow. "Mom! Mom!" Maddie was sobbing now, the door shaking as she threw herself against it. "It's dark. Please, it's all dark." I rattled the doorknob, locked tight with Wade's new padlock threaded through the old latch I'd forgotten existed. "Maddie, baby, I'm here. I'm right here." "Just a few more minutes," Wade said from behind me, that casual tone like we were discussing weather. Kids these days are too soft. When we were young, I spun and slapped him hard enough that my palm stung. He just laughed. "There she is. There's the fighter we remember." Derek held my arms when I went for Wade again. "Come on, Lauren, don't be dramatic. It's maybe 5 minutes. We all went through worse." Through the door, Maddie's breathing had turned ragged, the wheeze that came before her anxiety-triggered asthma attacks. "Can't breathe?" "She has asthma," I snarled, struggling against Derek's grip. "Let her out now!" "She's faking," my mother said from the landing, having finally followed the commotion. "Children learn manipulation young. You always cried wolf too." Tara kept filming, narrating in her influencer voice. "When tough love meets helicopter parenting. This is going to go so viral." I remembered the bobby pin in my hair, thick, old-fashioned, the kind my grandmother taught me to use for more than just hair, dropping to my knees. I worked it into the padlock while Maddie's cries grew quieter, more dangerous. The wheeze was worse now. "She's going to pass out," someone said, almost interested. The pin bent. Useless. From my pocket, I pulled my car keys. On the ring was a small multi-tool I'd gotten free from a conference. The thin screwdriver attachment went into the lock. Turn, probe, the way I'd learned picking the diary lock Elaine had put on my door when I was 16. Click. I yanked the padlock free and shoved the door open. Maddie was curled in the corner, her ladybug flashlight dead beside her. Wade must have removed the batteries. Her face was white-blue in the stormlight from the window, lips tinged purple, chest barely moving. "Call 911, I screamed, pulling her into my arms. Her inhaler was in her bag, across the room. I grabbed it, helped her take 2 puffs, then 2 more when the first didn't help. "Oh, come on," Wade said. "She's fine. Look, she's breathing." Elaine. "You're making a scene over nothing. This is why she's weak." I pulled out my phone, fingers shaking as I dialed. 911. "My daughter was locked in a dark room and had an asthma attack. We need an ambulance." Wade lunged for my phone. Victor finally appeared, stepping between us with the first decisive movement I'd seen from him in years. "Let's all calm down," he said to no one, to everyone, to the air itself. Then, softer, to me, "Cancel the call, Lauren. We'll handle this internally." Internally. I held Maddie tighter as her breathing slowly stabilized. She could have died. "No one dies from 5 minutes in the dark," Wade said. But his voice had lost some swagger. A few cousins were backing away, suddenly interested in the view outside. The 911 operator was asking for our address. I gave it loudly, clearly, while looking Wade dead in the eye. Yes, the child is breathing now but needs medical attention. Yes, she was deliberately locked in. Yes, by an adult. Multiple adults. Sirens in the distance. Wade crossed to Tara, whispered something. She stopped recording, but I saw her slip the phone into her pocket, not deleting anything. Good. I'd need that video. Maddie's fingers found mine, squeezed with surprising strength. When she looked up at me, there was something new in her 9-year-old eyes, not just fear, but understanding. These people, her blood relatives, had hurt her for entertainment. "We're leaving," she whispered, voice raw. "Yes, baby," I said, lifting her. "We're leaving. But first, we're going to make sure this never happens to anyone again." Wade tried his grin one more time. "Come on, Lauren, just for fun. It was just for fun." I finished. "I know. That's what you always say." The sound of sirens grew louder, and for the first time in my life, I saw Wade's smile completely disappear. The EMTs arrived in 12 minutes that felt like 12 hours. I held Maddie on the porch while they checked her oxygen levels, blood pressure, the angry red marks on her wrists from pounding on the door. She hadn't let go of my hand once. "Ma'am, we should transport her for observation," the younger EMT said, documenting everything on his tablet. "These numbers are concerning, and with her asthma history—" "She's fine," Elaine interrupted from the doorway. "This is unnecessary. Lauren always dramatizes everything." The EMT looked between us. "Are you the child's guardian?" "I'm her grandmother." "I'm her mother," I said firmly. "And yes, please transport her." Wade appeared beside Elaine, trying to pull the older EMT aside. "Look, man to man, this is just a family misunderstanding. Kids playing games. Door got stuck. No need for reports or—" "Sir, we're mandated reporters. A child was locked in a room and suffered medical distress. This gets documented." Wade's jaw tightened. "I want your badge number." "Wade, stop." Victor finally spoke with actual authority, but it was directed at diffusing, not defending. "Let them do their job." As the EMTs prepared Maddie for transport, I heard Wade mutter to Derek, "Did you hide the spare key, the one I showed you earlier?" "In my truck," Derek whispered back. "But Wade, if they're doing reports, they can't prove intent without the spare." The rage that flooded through me was ice cold, clarifying. They'd planned this. The spare key meant Wade could have let her out any time, but chose to wait, chose to let her panic, chose to let her struggle to breathe. "I'm riding with her," I told the EMTs. Elaine grabbed my wrist. "You're overreacting and ruining the reunion. Your father's siblings came from 3 states. I yanked free. Your brother locked my child in a dark room knowing she's afraid of the dark, knowing she has asthma, with a spare key in his pocket the whole time." The words hung in the air. Several relatives who'd been hovering suddenly found reasons to drift away. "You can't prove that," Elaine said, but her voice wavered. "Tara," I called out. You got all that on video, right? Wade showing off the lock, talking about it." Tara clutched her phone. It's just family stuff. "Lauren, not meant for evidence," I said. "It's meant for evidence." Wade took a step toward me. "You threatening legal action against family." "Mom," Maddie's small voice from the stretcher. My chest hurts again. I turned my back on all of them, climbing into the ambulance. But I heard Wade clearly. "This isn't over." "No," I said, looking back as the EMT prepared to close the doors. "It's not." The ride to Mercy General was quiet, except for the oxygen machine's hum. Maddie stared at the ceiling, processing. The EMT took notes as I explained her medical history, the incident, the deliberate nature of it all. "You'll want to talk to the social worker," he said quietly, "and probably law enforcement." At the hospital, while Maddie got a breathing treatment, my phone exploded with texts. "Mom, you've gone too far. Come back and we'll forget this happened." Wade, really cops over a game. Derek, Wade's just worried about his business. He didn't mean harm. Dad, your mother is humiliated. Please think of the family. Tara, I deleted the videos. Sorry, but I can't be involved. That last one made me laugh, sharp and bitter. Deleted from her phone maybe, but everything Tara posted went straight to cloud storage. She'd shown me that herself last Christmas, proud of her content archive. A knock on the door. A police officer and a woman in a navy suit. Ms. Hale, I'm Officer Martinez, and this is Patricia Williams from Child Protective Services. We need to ask you some questions about what happened today. Maddie squeezed my hand. Tell them about the spare key, she whispered. I heard Wade laughing about it through the door. Smart girl, traumatized, but smart. I told them everything. The history of pranks, the Facebook post about escape rooms, the new lock, the removed batteries from her flashlight, the circuit breaker, the spare key. Officer Martinez took notes while Patricia watched Maddie with professional concern. Will you be pressing charges? Martinez asked. From the hall. I heard familiar voices. My parents had followed us. Through the door's window, I saw Elaine's perfectly composed face crumble when she spotted the officer's uniform. Yes, I said. I'll be pressing charges. Wade's words echoed, just for fun. I looked at my daughter, small in the hospital bed, breathing through a nebulizer mask, and made a promise. This family's idea of fun was about to meet consequence, and I was going to make sure the lesson was unforgettable. Ms. Hale, Patricia said gently, we'll need to interview several family members. Do you have somewhere safe to stay tonight? We have a hotel, I said. Then, louder, so my parents could hear through the door. We won't be returning to that house. Elaine opened the door without knocking. Lauren, let's discuss this like adults. Ma'am, please wait outside, Officer Martinez said, standing. I'm her mother, and you're also a potential witness to child endangerment. Outside. Now. The look on Elaine's face, shock morphing into rage, morphing into fear, was the first real emotion I'd seen from her in years. Wade thought he'd locked my daughter in the dark. What he'd really done was unlock something in me, something that had been waiting 34 years to break free. The hunter was about to become the hunted, and I knew exactly which doors to lock. The hotel room became my war room. While Maddie slept, exhausted from medication and trauma, I worked with the methodical precision I used for design projects. 3 laptops borrowed from work spread across the desk, one for legal research, one for evidence compilation, one for communications. First, the criminal case. Officer Martinez had given me his card, said the detective would call Monday, but I wasn't waiting. I created a timeline document, every detail time-stamped. The Facebook post from Wade 2 days prior, screenshot saved, URL archived. The reunion photos where Wade displayed the lock enhanced to show the brand and model. Maddie's medical records from her anxiety diagnosis 6 months ago, scanned and organized. At 2:45 a.m., I got lucky. Tara might have deleted her videos, but she'd been live streaming to her Instagram story before that. 3 of her followers had screen-recorded portions, a DM to each, explaining the situation, and within an hour I had 2 videos showing Wade demonstrating the lock, another catching his toughen her up comment. The criminal charges would be unlawful restraint of a minor and reckless endangerment of a child. Ohio law was specific, confining a child through deception or force, creating substantial risk of physical harm. Wade's own words, 30 seconds of dark max, proved he knew about the electrical manipulation. The spare key Derek mentioned proved intent to control duration. Next, civil proceedings. I contacted Marin Cole, an attorney recommended by my colleague whose custody battle had turned vicious. Marin answered at 7 a.m. Sunday morning like it was normal business hours. Intentional infliction of emotional distress, she said after I explained. Both against your daughter and you. The uncle's the primary defendant, but your parents, premises liability and negligent supervision. They hosted. They knew his history. They prevented you from helping. They'll say it's family squabbling. They locked a traumatized asthmatic child in a dark room for entertainment. That's not squabbling. That's tort. Send me everything. The Third Avenue required more creativity. Wade's business. Redline Handyman and Locks. Advertised extensively on local Facebook groups. Licensed and bonded, the ads claimed. Your security specialist. A search of Ohio's contractor licensing database. No locksmith license for Wade Hale or Redline Handyman. Security system installer license none. Business license expired 3 years ago. I screenshot everything. Then I went deeper. Posts from customers showing Wade's work. Installed new deadbolts with photos of Wade drilling. That same grin. Upgraded our security with images of him handling electronic locks, the kind requiring certification he didn't have. At the reunion, multiple witnesses saw him with professional lock-picking tools. Operating as a locksmith without license while using those skills to endanger a child, the licensing board would be very interested. Monday morning, 8 a.m. sharp. I walked into Bayview Behavioral Group with Maddie, Dr. Sarah Chen. The irony of meeting the best child trauma specialist with that surname wasn't lost on me. Spent 2 hours with Maddie while I filled out forms. Acute stress response to targeted trauma. Dr. Chen diagnosed. The deliberate nature, the family betrayal component. This isn't simple phobia anymore. It's complex trauma requiring immediate intervention. She wrote detailed notes for our legal file, then gave me referrals for Maddie's ongoing treatment. Document everything, she advised. Behavioral changes, sleep disturbances, regression. The court needs to see the full impact. That afternoon, Detective Raymond called. Ms. Hale, I've reviewed Officer Martinez's report. I'll need you to come to the station. Bring all evidence. I arrived with 3 binders, USB drives, and a printed index. Raymond, a grandfather type with kind eyes, went through each piece methodically. The spare key is crucial, he said. If we can prove he had means to release her but chose not to, that elevates this significantly. Derek Hale knows about it. Wade asked him to hide it. We'll interview him. If he confirms, that's conspiracy. By Tuesday, I'd filed reports with 3 agencies, initiated 2 lawsuits, and built a case file that would make prosecutors weep with joy. But the masterpiece was the licensing board complaint. 20 pages documenting Wade's illegal operation, complete with evidence he'd installed locks at my parents' farm, the very locks used in the crime. Marin called Tuesday evening. Their insurance company contacted me. They're nervous. Already. Homeowners insurance doesn't like child endangerment claims. Bad optics. Expensive settlements. Your parents are about to discover their premiums tripling if they don't get dropped entirely. Wednesday, Maddie's teacher called. She had a panic attack when we practiced our lockdown drill. She kept saying, "Where's the spare key?" I added it to the documentation. Every nightmare, every regression, every moment my daughter paid for their fun. Thursday, Wade made a mistake. He texted me from a new number. Drop this and I'll pay for her therapy. Admission of guilt. Screenshot. Saved. Forwarded to Detective Raymond and Marin. By Friday, I had built something beautiful in its thoroughness, a 3-pronged attack designed to dismantle not just Wade's actions, but the entire family system that enabled him. Criminal charges that could mean jail time, civil suits that could mean financial ruin, professional complaints that would destroy his livelihood. I looked at Maddie, painting with her therapist's art supplies, slowly reclaiming her sense of safety. They wanted to play games with locks and keys. I was about to show them what it really meant to be trapped. 2 weeks after the incident, Elaine called me 17 times before leaving a voicemail. The family photographer has rescheduled for this Sunday at 2 p.m. Whatever happened between us, we need updated portraits for the holiday cards. Think of appearances. Appearances. The Hale family religion. I called Marin. They want a family photo session. This Sunday. Perfect, she said. Process servers work weekends, and Ohio allows recording in public spaces where there's no expectation of privacy. Sunday arrived crisp and bright, the farmhouse looking deceptively peaceful. Cars already lined the driveway, the whole clan assembled for damage control disguised as portraits. The photographer, a young woman named Becca, was adjusting her equipment by the barn, the same spot as the reunion disaster. I parked strategically, blocking Wade's truck. Maddie stayed at her therapist's recommended respite care. She wasn't ready, might never be ready. to see these people again. Lauren. Elaine rushed over, her smile bright as fresh paint. Where's Madison? Safe, I said. Let's get this over with. The relatives clustered in uncomfortable groups. Wade leaned against the barn, spinning his keyring around his finger, that familiar grin nowhere to be seen. He'd lost weight, his face gaunt. Good. At 2:15 p.m., a sedan pulled up. A man in a polo shirt emerged carrying a folder. Wade Hale. Yeah, you've been served. The process server handed him the civil suit papers, then turned to my parents. Elaine Hale, Victor Hale. My mother's face went white. What is this, ma'am? You're being sued for premises liability and negligent supervision of a minor. Becca kept shooting, her camera clicking rapidly. Whether by instinct or instruction, she was documenting everything. A second car arrived. Detective Raymond stepped out with 2 uniformed officers. Mr. Wade Hale, you're under arrest for unlawful restraint of a minor and endangering children. Are you fucking kidding me? Wade exploded. It was a game. Sir, please turn around. The relatives scattered like startled birds. Tara had her phone out, then seemed to remember her deleted videos and shoved it back in her pocket. You did this, Elaine turned on me. You called them during family photos. I didn't have to. The detective has been building the case for 2 weeks. The timing's just poetic. As the officers cuffed Wade, reading him his Miranda rights, a third vehicle arrived, a white van with the County Licensing Bureau logo. We're looking for the operator of Redline Handyman and Locks. The inspector held up a clipboard. That's him, Derek said quickly, pointing at Wade, already distancing himself. We have a complaint about operating without proper licensing, installing security systems and locks without certification. The inspector looked at the farmhouse. Is this one of the properties where unlicensed work was performed? Victor finally spoke. We didn't know. The homeowner is responsible for verifying contractor licenses. There are fines. Wade laughed, harsh and bitter, as the officers guided him toward the squad car. Just for fun, right, Lauren? This your idea of fun? No, I said, loud enough for everyone to hear. This is justice. Fun was what you thought you were having with my daughter. The inspector was photographing the locks Wade had installed. Becca was still shooting. The relatives who hadn't fled were frozen in a tableau of shock. Stop this, Elaine hissed, grabbing my arm. We're family. I pulled out my phone, showed her the screen. Maddie's therapy bill from this week, $700. The emergency room visit, $3,000. The security system I had to install so she could sleep, $2,000. The days of work I've missed, calculate that yourself. We'll pay. You'll pay anyway. That's what civil suits are for. Detective Raymond approached. Ms. Hale, we interviewed Derek Hale. He confirmed the spare key existed and that Wade instructed him to hide it. That's conspiracy to commit false imprisonment. Derek, still within earshot, went pale. I didn't, I was just, Sir, we'll need you to come to the station for formal questioning. Tara stepped forward. Desperate. Lauren, please. The videos are gone. I swear. I'm not involved. Your Instagram followers aren't gone. 3 of them recorded your live stream. They've already provided copies to the police. She dropped her phone, the screen cracking on the gravel. The photographer lowered her camera. Should I continue? Get one last shot, I said. The whole family, those who remained maybe 12 out of 30, arranged themselves in a ragged line. The banner from the reunion still hung, weather-beaten now. Family first, barely legible. Wade was in the back of the police car. Derek was being escorted to another vehicle. The inspector was writing citations. My parents stood at the edge of the frame, looking older than I'd ever seen them. Say cheese, Becca said weakly. The flash went off, capturing the death of the Hale family mythology. I walked back to my car, passing Wade in the cruiser. He mouthed something through the window, might have been sorry, might have been bitch. Didn't matter anymore. As I drove away, I saw Elaine in my rearview mirror, still standing in the same spot, still trying to maintain that perfect posture even as her world collapsed around her. They'd wanted to lock my daughter in the dark. Instead, I'd dragged all their shadows into the light. And unlike Maddie's room that night, this door would stay open for everyone to see. The courthouse steps were slick with October rain. 3 months had passed since the reunion, long enough for Wade to realize his lawyer couldn't make this disappear. I stood with Detective Raymond and Ada Jennifer Torres, watching Wade's truck pull into the lot. The Redline Handyman and Locks logo had been scraped off, but you could still see the ghost outline on the door. He took the plea, Torres informed me. Unlawful restraint, guilty, 18 months probation, 200 hours community service, mandatory anger management. No jail time. First offense on record, but Lauren, she smiled. That's just the criminal case. Inside courtroom 3B, Judge Harrison reviewed the restraining order petition. Wade sat with his public defender, that old grin finally, completely dead. His hands kept moving to his pockets, finding no keys to fidget with. Mr. Hale, the judge read from the report. You admitted to Detective Raymond that you possessed a spare key throughout the incident. You told your nephew Derek to, quote, hide it good so she can't prove anything. Is this accurate? Wade's lawyer whispered urgently. Wade nodded once. Verbal response. Please. Yes, Your Honor. The emergency protective order is granted. Mr. Hale, you are prohibited from coming within 500 feet of Madison Hale or Lauren Hale. This includes their home, Madison's school, and Ms. Hale's workplace. But we weren't done. 2 floors up, civil court was in session. Marin had worked magic with the insurance companies. Faced with potential liability, my parents' homeowner's insurance had already offered a settlement. $50,000 for Madison's trauma treatment, Marin announced in the hallway. Paid directly into a trust for her therapy and education? Elaine stood near the elevator. Her perfect composure cracked like old paint. This is extortion. This is consequence, Marin corrected. Your insurance company watched the videos. They saw you prevent Lauren from reaching her daughter. They saw you blame a 9-year-old for being traumatized. They want this settled before it gets worse. Victor signed the papers without looking at me. His hands shook. Wade's case was different. Without insurance, he was personally liable. The judgment, $75,000 for intentional infliction of emotional distress, would follow him through bankruptcy if necessary. I don't have that kind of money, Wade told the judge. Then wages will be garnished, Mr. Hale, if you ever work again. About that. The licensing board hearing was scheduled for the following week, but the outcome was predetermined. Operating without licenses. Using those illegal skills in commission of a crime, Wade would be barred from any licensed trade in Ohio for 10 years minimum. Outside the courthouse, a small crowd had gathered. Becca, the photographer, had submitted her photos to the local paper after learning what she'd inadvertently documented. Family reunion turns criminal ran on page 1 of the Maple Ridge Gazette. Wade tried to cover his face as reporters shouted questions. Mr. Hale, is it true you locked a child with special needs in a dark room? Wade. What about the other victims who've come forward? That was news to me. Torres caught my expression. 3 other families called after the article ran. Apparently, your uncle had a history of pranks at previous reunions. Tara stood by a blue Honda, her usual glamorous presentation replaced by sunglasses and a hoodie. She'd been subpoenaed as a witness but never had to testify after Wade took the plea. Her Instagram had gone dark after her followers learned about the videos. Turns out, family fun doesn't play well when it involves child endangerment. Derek sat in his truck, avoiding everyone's eyes. He'd received 6 months probation for conspiracy, his contractor's license suspended. He'd testified against Wade for leniency family loyalty evaporating under legal pressure. At 4:30 p.m., the final document was delivered. The Ohio Department of Commerce, Division of Real Estate and Professional Licensing, had made their determination. Wade's business was officially ordered to cease all operations. The sign on his truck wasn't just scraped off, it was illegal to display. Wade. A reporter caught him at his truck. Any comment on the lifetime ban from working with children. That was part of the plea: no unsupervised contact with minors, including at family gatherings. Wade looked directly at me across the parking lot, his mouth forming words, "just for fun." I finished loudly. "That's what you called it when you locked my traumatized daughter in the dark with a spare key in your pocket. Just for fun." The reporters turned their cameras on me. "My daughter is 9 years old. She trusted her family to keep her safe. Instead, they turned her trauma into entertainment. Wade Hale thought it was fun to hear her beg. My parents thought it was fun to watch. That's not family. That's cruelty." "Ms. Hale, what about forgiveness?" someone shouted. I thought of Maddie, who still slept with 6 nightlights, who still asked where the spare keys were for every door. Forgiveness comes after accountability. Today was accountability. Wade's truck wouldn't start. The irony of a locksmith turned handyman who couldn't fix his own vehicle wasn't lost on anyone. He had to call for a tow from a company that wasn't his, would never be his again. I walked to my car, past Elaine, who stood frozen by the courthouse entrance. She opened her mouth, perhaps to play mother one last time, but I held up the restraining order. 500 feet, I reminded her. That includes emotional distance. The last thing I saw in my mirror was Wade standing in the rain beside his dead truck, the ghost of redline handyman and locks washing away in the rain. Behind him, the courthouse doors closed with a sound like a lock clicking shut. Permanent. Final. Just for justice. The parking lot was nearly empty now, just their cars and mine under the gray October sky. Elaine approached slowly, each step measured like she was walking on glass. In her hand was a folded document, the no-contact agreement Maureen had drawn up. "If you want any possibility of seeing Madison in the future," I said, "you sign that." It acknowledges what happened, accepts responsibility, and agrees to supervised visits only after family therapy. Victor stood behind her, smaller somehow, like the weight of maintaining their facade had been the only thing keeping him upright. "This is ridiculous," Elaine whispered, but her hand was already reaching for my pen. "We're her grandparents. Grandparents protect. You enabled." She signed. Victor signed. Their signatures looked like epitaphs. I walked back to my old bedroom key, the brass one Wade had dangled like a trophy 3 months ago. I'd had it in my pocket through every court hearing, every therapy session, every nightmare Maddie woke from screaming. Now I held it out to them. "This is yours," I said. "I don't need it anymore." But I reached into my other pocket and pulled out something else, a new padlock, still in its package. High security, pick-resistant, the kind that actually protects instead of imprisons. I set it on the hood of their car. "This is mine. A boundary. The next time you want to play with locks and keys, remember, I know how to use them correctly now." Wade's tow truck was pulling away, his silhouette visible through the back window. He'd lost his business, his reputation, his freedom to be around children. The thing about locks, once you're labeled a predator who targets kids, that door never fully opens again. Derek had already fled, probably racing home to figure out how to salvage his own contractor business. Tara sat in her car, staring at her phone. Her last Instagram post had 43,000 comments, none of them kind. She'd wanted to go viral. Wish granted. Wrong direction. I climbed into my car, started the engine. In 2 hours, I'd pick up Maddie from therapy. Dr. Chen said she was making progress. She'd managed to close a door yesterday, though she immediately opened it again. Small steps. "Lauren." Victor's voice at my window, the first time he'd said my name in years without it being attached to criticism. Was it worth it, all this destruction? I thought about Maddie's face in that emergency room, the way she still gripped her ladybug flashlight like a talisman, the new deadbolt on her bedroom door that only she had the key to her choice. Her control. "You had 30 seconds to stop him," I said. "To be a father, a grandfather, You chose silence. So yes, it was worth every second. As I drove away, sunlight finally broke through the clouds, flooding the car with amber light. My phone buzzed a text from Maddie's teacher. She'd participated in show and tell today, bringing her therapy journal. The title she'd given her presentation, How My Mom Became My Hero. The farmhouse disappeared in my rearview mirror, along with the ghost of every family gathering where I'd smiled through Wade's cruelty, my parents' indifference, the whole elaborate performance of happy family. At the city limits, I pulled over and rolled down the windows. The October air was sharp, clean, free of the suffocating smell of charred meat and cheap beer. I reached for the old bedroom key one last time, the one I'd told them I didn't need. I threw it as far as I could into the field beside the road. It disappeared into the tall grass, irretrievable, meaningless, just another piece of metal returning to the earth. When I got to the therapy center, Maddie was waiting in the sunshine, drawing with sidewalk chalk. She'd drawn a house doors and windows wide open, light streaming out from every opening, no locks visible anywhere. "Mom," she ran to me, and I noticed she didn't check the car doors twice like she usually did. "Dr. Chin taught me something today. She said being brave doesn't mean not being scared. It means doing the right thing even when you are—" "That's true, baby. Then we're both brave." "Right. You were scared too, but you protected me anyway." I hugged her tight. "Yeah, we're both brave." As we drove home, Maddie played with the radio, singing along to some pop song about freedom. In the morning light, her face was peaceful. The shadows were still there. They always would be, but they no longer owned her. Wade had thought he was teaching her a lesson about toughness. Instead, he'd taught us both about justice. He'd wanted to play with locks and keys, thinking he held all the power. But the thing about locks, they're only as strong as the person holding the key. And now, finally, we held our own. The October sun climbed higher, burning away the last of the morning clouds. Ahead of us, the road home stretched clear and bright. Every door we'd pass through our choice to open, or to lock, our keys, our decision, just for us. Thank you for listening to this story of standing up against family abuse and finding justice when those meant to protect become the predators. Where are you listening from today? I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. Please subscribe to the channel and share your own experiences with setting boundaries with toxic family members. Your story might help someone else find their courage. Remember, sometimes the strongest thing you can do is lock the door and throw away the key.